Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So during the course of the day when I'm at work, oftentimes I'm listening to documentaries. I'm a software engineer by trade. And I listen to documentaries, historical stuff, debates, philosophical stuff, all sorts of just mind-expanding stuff. Every so often I get the chance to listen to political dialogue. Now, political dialogue is a little bit more difficult to listen to in work just because sometimes you get engaged in what you're listening to. I was listening, I think today it was Debbie. She did a video. And as I listened to her, I was like, yeah, that's true, but... And I had this feeling of, yes, I agree with you, but... It's this thing of, how can I say it? It's like what you're saying is absolutely correct. Slightly disagree with the method. Or not so much the method. I don't even think I disagree with the method. I think I disagree with the non-method, if that makes sense. And this isn't just her, it's people in general. Where you're listening to them, there's articulating a problem. This is a problem. This sucks. This is a horrible thing. I don't know why this is this way. You need to do something about this. Somebody needs to do something about that. We're inundated with it. Granted, more so in indie media, because the news media, mainstream media, for the most part, gloss over problems in society. But often, particularly progressives, look at the world and are acutely aware of problems and difficulties in that particular society. Even from here, where I am, perched here, looking at the world in my non-ivory tower, I do the same thing. Complain and bitch and moan about it and everything else. So, a new strategy. I need to call some people out. And not call them out in a bad way. Call them out in the sense of... attention. Meaning, rally the sons. This is a call to arms. Nina Turner. Tulsi Gabbard. Tim Black, Cornel West, Chris Hedges, Chomsky. I don't even have to say no, everybody knows who Chomsky is. Glenn Ford, sane progressive, especially sane progressive. Hard bastard. H.A. Goodman, real progressives. Bernie Sanders, the Progressive Independence Party, or somebody from the Progressive Independence Party. Somebody from Black Lives Matter, somebody from an environmentalist movement, somebody from Greenpeace, or not Greenpeace, the Greens, somebody from the various unions, somebody from women's groups, even Peter Josephs, the guy who did Zeitgeist. On August 5th, I'm having a meetup. Now, I don't necessarily know where that meetup is going to be. It's going to be in an undisclosed, as of yet, undisclosed location, because as of yet, I do not know the location. I'm calling these people to the meeting. All of them. I'm going to send each and every one of these people an email, or tweet, or Facebook post. I'm going to spam the hell out of them, and I request that you do the same. It's one thing to bitch about a problem. It's one thing to complain about a problem. It's one thing to endure a certain amount of purity. But we do have a problem. And this is, I don't find this to be a mild problem at all. If Donald Trump is going to be in that office, we need to suffer through a Trump presidency. We should get something for that suffering through a Trump presidency. We have all these groups, fractured, brand new Congress, Justice Democrats. You have people trying to draft Sanders. You have Sanders trying to pull people back into the Democratic Party. You have others who are just out of the process, completely dispirited by the whole thing. That's a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem on two counts. On one count, Democrats could lose again. I could totally see that happening again. On the second point, Democrats could win. Both of those things are problems. The moment that a Democrat gets back in that office, the first thing they're going to say is, Donald Trump was the goddamn apocalypse. And unless you want another Trump, you need to shut your values up and vote for whoever the hell we put up. Whatever corporate shill that's the light of the day. Now, I don't want to endure that. Meaning something between now and then needs to take place. I'm saying August 5th, that something should take place. And all of these people who I called, I would prefer to be at that particular place. And again, and yes, this is grandiose, and this is epic, I get it. But you got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. And ultimately, every solution that I find, or every strategy that I think have the chance of working, or has the chance of changing anything, involves other people. I'm calling these people to the process. Now, the reason I want them asses in seats on August the 5th, and let me run through the list again. Nita Turner, Tulsi Gabbard, Tim Black, Cornel West, Noam Chomsky, Glenn Ford, Sane Progressive, Hard Bastard, Bernie Sanders, H.A. Goodman, Progressive Independence Party, Real Progressives, someone from Black Lives Matter, someone from Environmental Group, someone from the Socialist Movement, someone from Green Delegation, someone from unions, women's groups, even Benjamin Dixon. I'm looking for a conglomerate of media in addition to intellectual personalities, or people who have the capacity to think through a solution or think through a problem, have context of that particular problem, and can work through solutions. And I'm saying, organize that stuff together. Not necessarily being frittered away in all these other areas. No, focus your efforts. This is chess. How do you accomplish the objective you want to accomplish? You rally your sons. You rally your troops. This is a rallying of the troops. I don't expect these people to do it all alone. What I expect is, of this group, you're going to get ideas and plans, in addition to a body that's built purely for the point of a class rights movement. That's what I'm getting at. I don't care what Justice Democrats or brand new Congress is doing. Ultimately, putting a politician in office is not the same thing as creating a movement. A movement gives you pressure to change society. Regardless of you putting 1 or 2 candidates up, that person in and of himself is not going to have the capacity to change society, meaning change the fundamental framework of society. That requires a population. I'm saying this group has a capacity, particularly with a little thought and foresight and a little ingenuity, to harness a population and at the very least kick off a movement. To kick off a movement. There are a few things that I want to take place. A platform for politicized humanism or progressivism, whatever you want to call it. A platform, a debate, a straight up debate of sorts of what is going to be the platform. Why do we exist? Now, I can give you mine, and yes, I would want to make this argument for my own. But each person, whoever wants to make that case, can make that case. I want them to make that case. And ultimately, I want the delegation, the summit, whatever you want to call it, to be a vote on the People's Party. What do you want this particular party? What's the platform? Before you get to the platform, the philosophical basis of the group. Again, why do you exist? What is your rationale for existence? Because ultimately, your rationale for existence should embolden your platform. Meaning one should lead to the other organically. And again, all of these things I'm making a point are up for debate. People get up, make their case. At the end of the process, you make a vote on it. You change it, almost turn it into almost like a legislative body. But in this case, it's a delegation of trying to save the country. I can make an argument. The world. I can make an argument. The world. And yes, I get it. It's grandiose. I don't care that it's grandiose. I'm setting a date. I'm putting people's names on it. And I'm going to send that information to those people. I would ask you to do the same. Because I actually do want these people to show up. Formation of a people's movement. And ideas on how. Meaning, the whole point of the delegation is to say, alright, from here on out, we're coming to some consensus on what the population wants. And based upon what the population wants, that is going to be what we're going to hold the standard on. Meaning, you walk this way or you get no vote. I don't care what your party is. You walk this way or you get no vote. If you have millions and millions and millions of people who are politically aligned, you don't need a large majority of the country. A large percentage of the country is a movement. That's movement. The last part, a persistent delegation. Meaning, a body that doesn't go away. Yes, we had this particular summit. Yes, the summit sets a particular agenda. But you also have a delegation that enacts that agenda. It doesn't go anywhere. Whether they have to fundraise, whether they have to come up with some other mechanisms in order to fund the particular organization, that organization from here on out is permanent. It's permanent. The focus is class rights, a better life, and making sure that platform come to be, not from inside political circles, but externally pushing on the process or on the political apparatus. Now, if you need somebody in, that's true. But I'm making this argument that ultimately you need somebody on the outside pushing up against the apparatus to enforce a particular agenda. That's what I call a movement. I'm making this point that this delegation of sorts is there to come to some consensus on how do you fix it? How do you solve the issue? If all of these powers were brought together for a particular task, how do you solve this issue? Now, in addition to defining how do you solve the issue, what is your political platform in order to solve that issue? Now, the platform itself doesn't necessarily indicate a particular party. Yes, I would like this to be a party, but ultimately this is pushing on the outside of the political apparatus. Because ultimately you want enough heat on these guys to conform them in a particular way. Just putting a politician doesn't do it. It doesn't do it. And that persistent delegation wakes up in the morning with the idea of how can we advance things for the human race? And when they go to sleep at night, how can we advance things for the human race? That's their job. Essentially, legislatively articulate the philosophical basis for your group and to enforce or get enough political clout to push through your agenda. That's what it boils down to. I'm making this argument that candidates will spring up to support the agenda, particularly if you have particular numbers. If you have a situation where you have a movement, you're going to have people organically spring up to represent that particular movement. You're not going to have to put a candidate up, in this kind of rushed, hurried, forced way. Ultimately, these people will show up just because of the process that you've kicked off and just because of the philosophical basis and just because of the power you exert on a political apparatus. Fundraising apparatus. Look, to me, fundraising is the sleaziest process in the world. It's just how I feel about it. I don't particularly like this whole cash thing. But any organization that's going to persist itself is going to have some fundraising. Ideas on mass appeal and getting ideas into the public consciousness. This is important. This one is important. If I'm having a conversation with you and you're telling me that your life is XYZ, you're barely making ends meet, you school loans, you thought you were going to have a different job, all these things, all these vagaries of sorts of your particular society. And I say, well, hey, we can change this. We can come up with a different idea. And your mind is so narrow that you can't necessarily see how things can be different. That's a problem. In order for anybody to come with this idea of, yes, there's a movement, you have to, on some level, at least understand that the world can be different. Now, I know people say, you resign yourself to a particular fate and you do it just because you do it. But certainly you understand that this idea of hope is far more compelling than any idea of depression and resignation. I'm making the point that if you could get across this idea of, yes, your life, this country, can be different. It can be oriented towards humanity. It doesn't necessarily have to be oriented towards capital. And we can put through legislation, one policy after the next, to articulate that legislative will. You have to get that through to the individual, though. You have to get across to him in some way where he understands, oh, right, my life will be better doing this. I'm not asking this guy to protest. I'm not asking this guy to go into the street. I'm only asking him for political alignment. Meaning, associate with the group. Associate with the People's Party. And when I'm saying People Party, I mean a wide base. I don't need to agree with each and everything that you think of. I do want to agree on this level of honesty, integrity, and earnestness when you're addressing a particular situation. And within that, you can come to some level of agreement. I'm not going to necessarily agree with everything on a platform. Nobody is. But the goal is not necessarily to get everyone to agree. The goal is to move the country into a better place that's more in line with what the public wants. That's not where we are right now. We're nowhere near that. What the public wants is not articulated at all through legislation. It's not. The only thing that's articulated through legislation is essentially other people who are paying these guys, which is a big difference. It's a very big difference. Ideas on mass appeal. All right, so I've had a few ideas on this. Churches. And I like the churches idea. Because you need a situation where you're trying to touch all segments of society. At the very least, the things that you're espousing or you're trying to push align closely with religious idealism. What I mean is, the idea of Christianity, for the most part, this Jesus thing. Jesus was a hippie. And the things that he's talking about, the things that he wants, are for the most part espoused by Martin Luther King. And for the most part are espoused in a progressive agenda. Churches should be friends in this particular arena, because ultimately I would imagine that they want the best for their congregation. If they want the best for their congregation and we're trying to do things that actually helps their congregation, they may be inclined to do so, particularly since, again, this is within their value system. Unions. When the unions are affiliated with the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party does nothing for unions. They stood by while you guys were obliterated in Wisconsin. Why are you supporting them? Are you telling me that with this particular list of people that they can pull unions over to the side? Yes, I want the union delegation there. I want to have a conversation with the union delegation. I want to get across this idea that we are a better option than the devil that you know and you've been working with that hasn't done anything for you over the past 50 years. Service sector. Again, that's a big one. You have all these people making minimum wage jobs. I mean, half of the country, or half of the country is in poverty. Also, half of the country is working in these low-wage jobs. That's not a coincidence that half of the country is, impoverished, and half of the country is working low-wage jobs. Those things are one-to-one. The second part to this, and again, this is why I kind of need a bunch of people in this, because I don't have the expertise for everything. An antitrust lawsuiting at the parties. If you're going to start a third party, you're going to run into a problem. The problem you're going to run into are the parties themselves. The Democratic Party has a vested interest in being the party or the least worst party. They don't want another party in that mix. They want to be able to say, hey, we're an inch better than those guys. You should vote for us. It's the pragmatic choice. If you have somebody else who's more pragmatic and who leans more towards what the population wants, then right off the bat you can see there's a problem with, for Democrats. You have to break those up. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party are two corporations. Those two corporations have a monopoly on the political process. Monopolies are against the law. Antitrust litigation should be able to challenge that. Now, when you're asking me, I have no idea how to do that. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how these people brought the lawsuit against the DNC for Sanders. But I do know that individuals can bring antitrust suits against organizations. I'm saying that whatever body that we end up with in this particular delegation, that body, one of the first things they need to do is to look into filing a suit against both of the parties in order to break them up. What I mean is to break up the rules that would allow those parties to exclude other parties from the process. If you're going to get yourself into the political process, you need to get past these parties. Antitrust legislation, it allows you to try to solve that problem beyond the expression of the problem. Meaning, if you're dealing with an issue where you're trying to bring up another party, the parties have dominion over that process. They control the electoral system. They control the levers of government. If you can break them up, then you don't have to deal with them at the level of politics. You can deal with them at the level of court. Meaning, your chances are a hell of a lot better with dealing with them in court with this idea of attacking them with an antitrust suit versus trying to get a third party from scratch into the political mix. I think this is important. I don't know for certain it can be done, but if it can be done, that would, for the most part, cripple them enough that would allow other parties into the mix. Meaning, you'll be able to slip your party into the mix by decapitating the other two parties. That's what I would do. I mean, I would look for ways to try to undermine the other two parties, because ultimately they're the goalkeepers. They're the people who are keeping you out of the process. And anything that you want to do in regards to a people's party is going to have to go through those two goalies. You can go through those goalies. I would say try to use the legal apparatus to go through those goalies, not the political apparatus. They control both the levers in that sense. If you want to change things, I mean, if you say you really want a revolution, you say you want the world to be different. Like I would hear Same Progressive, I would hear Hard Bastard, I would hear even Tim Black, I would hear Goodman. All of these people, for the most part, are expressing this idea of the world should be a better place. We want the world to be a better place. And we want to do this without dealing with the parties themselves. Okay. Put your money where your mouth is. Put your skin in the game. You have the opportunity for something big, particularly with Donald Trump in that office. In 4 years, in 3 years, you're going to have another situation. Because understand, if election was held today, you have no clout. You have no clout. All of your energies are being frittered away in all these different areas. Your goal, if you're trying to get elected, is to put... Look, you need to bring these people together in a sense. And I'm making the case that having these people show up at one particular location, you can have a summit where you're hashing out issues. You're solidifying what you are. And you're combining all of your energies into one fist. That one fist may start off small, but you will bring people to your cause, that you're getting this word out, getting this idea out. You're having conversations with people. You will not get the political apparatus right off the bat. You will get indie media to back you up, because mostly, particularly in progressive circles, indie media wants another party. Now, you will run into an issue with Justice Democrats. Again, I make this point. If you're politically aligned in a way where you say you're not voting for a Democrat, then it don't matter. They can't get elected without you. You bring them to the bargaining table by political will or political force. And in order to do any of that, though, you need to be united. You need to be united. Meaning you need to have something, some focal point of energy where you can focus that energy into something else of trying to get yourself either into office or at the very least pressuring the political establishment to get what you want asserted into law. Even if it's just moving the country to the left or moving the country to be more in line with what the actual population wants. All of those things are wins. All of those things are good. And I'm saying, if you come together in a way that would allow you to articulate that, you have a much better chance of wielding authority when you're united than you ever will have being separated in all these different areas. And it goes beyond that. This system is unsustainable. It's completely unsustainable. Meaning, our reality that we exist in is a choice. Nobody's forcing us to live this particular way. You have certain factors in society that creates incentives for people to persist the system the way it is. But that has nothing to do with the regular rest of the population that makes an agreement of, okay, we will follow the orders in this particular system. I'm saying, stop following the orders of the particular system. Stop complaining about the particular system. Actually get aggressive and come up with a solution on trying to deal with it. And making the case that you can deal with it. You can have a strategy that undermines the political process enough where you can get your particular person in, or at the very least get your will asserted in a way that's you don't necessarily have access to now. But you can't do that divided. You can't do that divided. If you're earnest about wanting things to change, if you full well understand that the pain associated with an individual that doesn't have the resources to make their basic needs, that is a real quantifiable pain, at least to the individual. Hell, not even to the individual, also to you. If you have any level of empathy, you look at the pain and depravity in our particular society, and you ask yourself, does it need to be this way? And do we have a moral obligation to change it if we had the opportunity to change it? I'm saying August 5th is the opportunity to start changing it. That's the point I'm making, August 5th. If you really want to come up with a solution to this, you have to do it united. And I would make the case that if you're trying to pull people in, meaning a people's party, then you pull in the people who you want in your particular party. Now again, I'm not saying this is necessarily a party, I'm just making this point that you need numbers. The pain of the individual in our particular society cannot be done away with at the level of the pain itself. Meaning, the cop that shoots this particular kid in the back, how do you solve that particular issue? The guy who's the corrupt politician who's taking money, we're going to call it donations, but those things are actually bribes. How do you solve that? How do you solve the media organization giving you a bullshit story that's propagating a war? How do you solve those things? Like, the point I'm getting at is you can't solve those things at the level of politics. You have to solve those things at the level of the model. The only thing that exceeds current politics is a mass movement. I'm calling these people to account in a sense because I think these people have the know-how, the wherewithal, not to mention the influence, be it media or for that matter, be it just their platform, to initiate the process and to kickstart it. And I would make the case that August 5th, coming up with an agenda, coming up with a philosophical basis, coming up with a plan and a strategy on how to actually deal with it, is an actual plan. Like, I'm always amazed at the haphazardness of life. Like, you have the situation where, okay, we need to get X, Y, Z accomplished, but society aimlessly wanders. Society has no objective. It has no goal. It just aimlessly goes about its way. I'm making the point that if you want to get anything changed, you can't aimlessly go about your way. There are no messiahs. There are no people waiting in the wings to save you. There is no God above in this sense that's going to help you out. None of that. You are your own saviors. We are our own saviors. If you want to change things, you can change things. You just require a movement to do so. That the numbers that you're going to need for it is substantial. But I'm saying you can get those numbers. I think this country is a tinderbox. I think it just needs to be hit the right way. And I think if you had a particular message and you could get it across to them that you're being screwed. You're being screwed. We can have a better country. You're being screwed. If you can get that across, something that they already believe, you have a chance. You have a chance. My biggest fear is that 2020, a Democrat takes that office. That's my biggest fear. Because I think we have lost an amazing opportunity to actually do something big and fundamentally change the country. Donald Trump is a goblin. But it is a goblin that reaps certain rewards with him, meaning a certain level of political adversity against him. That should be harnessed. Progressives should be harnessing that. And my fear is that we end up in a process where that's essentially the friction of the process comes into a crawl, and then status quo crawls back into a particular office. That is all they're waiting on. That is all they're waiting on. In their mind, Trump is going to be horrible, people are going to resist them, and ultimately a shill can stand in the limelight because he was on stage with Sanders at one point. Because Sanders was pulling people back into the Democratic Party, and because people don't really pay attention to the political process. I like Sanders, and I saw that guy on stage with Sanders, so yeah, I'm going to vote for this corporate shill, not realizing that those quantities are very different things. That is my biggest fear. That is my biggest fear. Followed second by Trump taking office again. I'm calling all of these people, and look, this list wasn't necessarily random. The names selected were people who showed an interest in changing things, who for the most part understands the vagaries of this society, this idea of imperialism, this idea of capitalism, run amok. All of these things, they understand these things. And because they understand these things, I was hoping that some of the people from this list would show up. And some of the people of this list would enact this, I guess, people's party of sorts. Have the conversation on what the philosophical basis is. Have the conversation on what the platform should be evolving from that philosophical basis. Have a conversation on who's going to be the persistent delegation, meaning the delegation that focuses on this particular issue, and strategically come up with ways to advance the objectives of this particular issue. Not something that's 20 years off, but no, actively, every day, seeks to actually affect the will in this particular place and to stir up this idea of a movement. It's doable. It's doable. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the content, feel free to like, share, subscribe, and you can always support the work through Patreon.